When we remember a time, we remember moments. A kaleidoscope of the sights, the sounds, the emotions that remind us of the way we were. Our world. It's about time. Tonight, Duels in the Sun, Campaign 52. Here are Linda Ellerbee and Ray Gandolf.
For the next hour, think of your television set as a time machine.
And gird your loins, throw down your gauntlet, and if somebody slaps your face, choose your weapon.
Welcome to 1952. Between the political parties of July and the presidential polls of November, under some strange-looking suns and for some strange-sounding reasons, a whole bunch of downright odd duels will be fought. And then there's politics. Time to put on a pair of dark glasses, pull out the pearl-handled pistols, and pay attention to the rules of the duels. Unless you are a politician.
I don't know when reporters first began covering political conventions. Presumably there was a guy with a goose quill pen taking notes on a selection of George Washington. Newspapers and radio covered conventions without greatly changing the nature of the duel. But in 1952 in Chicago, when television covered both conventions live, nationwide, gavel to gavel for the first time, things would never be quite the same again.
They got about 100 announcers, 1,500 technicians, and about $40 million worth of equipment for this radio and television coverage. And in case anything breaks down, they have 2 Indians standing by with a campfire and a blanket.
When I'm calling you,
Inside little boxes under artificial sun, style and substance, prepare to shoot it out. It will be a massacre.
This is Bill Henry from the Convention Hall in Chicago.
Nothing else will change American politics so much so fast. More than 65 million people will be able to watch. And if there's a television prayer, it is, will the delegates and alternates of this convention please be heeded?
Will the delegates and alternates of this convention please be seated?
Television thinks of it as a kind of manifest destiny, and a young Don Hewitt directs CBS News into what CBS News knows not what yet.
And all of a sudden, we found ourselves at this political convention. And we said, wow, we can do all the things radio can do. We can bring you instantaneous coverage of a big event. We were spreading our wings, and we were learning to fly.
And there's no Edward R. Murrow in the CBS studio, only a fairly unknown reporter from Washington. His job is to cover a national convention he can see only on television. The job has no name. They invent one. He will be called Anchorman, whatever that means.
This is Walter Cronkite back in Studio A, our control point for CBS television coverage of the Republican National Convention.
That was the year 3 big names were sort of etched into the American consciousness. Adlai Stevenson, Dwight Eisenhower, and Walter Cronkite.
The convention's principal business is the nomination of a candidate for the presidency and one for the vice presidency.
He had Anchorman written all over his face.
I got the job partly because the old-timers and the skilled people at CBS News were all busy with radio and didn't really want to do television that much. There wasn't a lot of competition for the job, I don't think.
Well, so Vice President Alvin Barkley has addressed the Democratic Convention, and he says his goodbyes to party leaders as he leaves the International Amphitheater.
David Schoenbrunn, a real CBS News reporter, which means radio until now.
On the second day, when the news came in that the audience was watching, that television had become a major phenomenon of America, at that point, Eric Sevareid, Charlie Collingwood, myself, we began wandering over to the television booth and saying, hi, can we help you out in any way?
TV has beat radio in almost every way. There will be no blood on the floor, except between TV and TV.
This is part of the complete 1952 NBC political coverage.
Political, right, politicians, remember them? There's the conservative Ohio senator, who is, and also looks like,
Mr. Republican Bob Cass.
And the war hero with the telescope name,
The telly likes Ike.
And you know, all this talk about Taft and Eisenhower having a fight, that's all newspaper stuff. Believe me, there's nothing to it, because today I saw Taft lighting a cigar for Eisenhower. He was using a flamethrower.
The Democratic Convention, also in Chicago, had 11 candidates at post time.
I got the horse right here, the name is Paul Revere, and here's a guy that says if the well is clear, can do. This guy says the horse can do.
And there was a dark horse, the reluctant Adlai Stevenson, governor of Illinois.
I shall never be a candidate under any circumstances in the sense of going out and soliciting anyone's vote or anyone's help.
The TV cameras were not quite everywhere, it just seemed that way, as one CBS reporter discovered.
He got into the men's room, and of course the delegates had never seen television action before. They didn't know who was the cameraman or who wasn't and so forth. And the fellow who was at the head of the line said, "My God, not television in here!"
Outside the restrooms, the cameras were everywhere, probing the convention floor and relaying to America what they found without pity. Clifton White was an alternate delegate at the Republican convention.
We all got briefings on how to behave ourselves on the convention floor, like, you know, don't read the newspaper, don't smoke your cigars on the floor of the convention, don't pick your nose.
Good morning, good morning. It's great to stay up late. Good morning to you and you and you and you.
Conventioneers learned quickly that it was better to play to the cameras than to be discovered by them. If there was chaos, chaos got reported.
There was such a mess on the floor of the convention, the Democratic convention, that we almost had a major disaster in this country. There was a fire on the floor, and I thought there's going to be no escape from this when this fire goes.
Just take it easy. Stay there. Stay there. There's 2 firemen and 2 policemen there now.
The fire interrupted a speech by Governor James Burns of South Carolina.
But when he got back to the microphone, he said, "Mr. Chairman, I want you to know
I did not set the place on fire."
Between the live proceedings, there were live commercials.
On the floor of the convention, let's have a word from Betty Furness.
All summer and fall, there are fruits and vegetables plentiful and good. It would be just a shame not to freeze them. And it's so easy in a Westinghouse upright home freezer.
Westinghouse had a kitchen set in the convention hall. Betty Furness opened and closed more freezers and refrigerators than a hotel doorman. She logged more airtime than any speaker of either party at either convention. She was big stuff.
There was a lot of talk among newspaper columnists of running me for vice president, or they said, "We've seen her so much, why don't we run her for office?" There's a cartoon of a man sitting watching a television set and his kid beside him, and his kid saying, "Who's ahead, Pop, Ike Taft or Betty Furness?" People didn't watch the conventions. They sat down and they stayed in their chairs for a week.
There was this great fascination with watching something happen as it was happening.
On July 11th at the Republican convention, Eisenhower and Taft battled it out through the first ballot, and Cronkite told us about it.
General Eisenhower fell some 9 votes short of a first ballot nomination, but now there seems to be activity in the Minnesota delegation.
Mr. Chairman,
Gentlemen,
Minnesota wishes to change its vote. Minnesota cast its 28th vote for Eisenhower.
And General Eisenhower is nominated by the Republican convention as its candidate for the presidency.
Ike, who didn't much like television, did watch his triumph from his hotel. Later, he went to anoint his running mate.
Waiting now down there on the floor for the nomination of Senator Richard Nixon of California as the vice presidential candidate. He has been selected by General Eisenhower as his running mate.
First of all, I was very surprised and happy about the whole thing. I was having my lunch, and it flashed on the television. I dropped the sandwich I was eating, and I haven't had a bite since.
later, the Democrats brushed off all those eager candidates and nominated Adlai Stevenson on the third ballot. Stevenson chose Alabama Senator John Sparkman as his running mate. Candidate Stevenson was that rarest of political animals, a drafted horse.
They had read about it, they had heard about it, but they'd never seen it before.
This has been Walter Cronkite reporting from Studio A and saying now good night.
Good night, Walter. He won't be there later tonight when we look at television's role in the presidential campaign. That was more for ad men than reporters. American TV did not cover the Olympics that summer in Helsinki, Finland, the Duels in the midnight sun. But we do have some pictures and some good stories. Come back to the Summer Olympics of 1952.
Our world continues with Duels in the Sun, Campaign 1952.
Leroy Neiman for the Sharp Color Copier.
Vivid colors have always excited me in my art and my life.
Now for bright winning colors, Sharp's advanced technology creates a full-color business copier. It copies from slides, makes transparencies, enlarges and reduces. From crisp black and white to full-color copies, you're the winner with Sharp.
Art by Neiman, color by Sharp. How do I ever get along without it?
Nestea presents Ice Teasers. A real tasty, tingly, good time. Iced tea teasing with the taste of fruit and only 6 calories. Ice Teasers.
Boy, there is nothing better than a vacation to recharge the old batteries. And there's nothing better than Piedmont's low vacation fares to recharge the old wallet. We are talking big, big savings on your vacation, folks. And you better jump on these low fares before the fish start jumping, because I'll tell you the truth, with fares this low, I can't believe that more people aren't taking advantage of them. So call Piedmont Airlines or your travel agent today. I wish I could tell you where I was, but it's kind of a secret.
One reason Buick Century is among the best-selling cars in America is that after it gets 113 inspections at the factory and 87 more at the dealership, it is then subjected to the ultimate inspection, yours. We check the workmanship of every Century so thoroughly because it's a car so many people depend on. Buick, where better really matters.
Introducing new, improved, professional strength Effordent Denture Cleanser. Stronger than ever, removes more stains, more plaque, and kills germs. For a professional-looking clean, get new, improved, professional strength Effordent.
We'll keep the preacher in line.
On the Disney Sunday movie, the Lord works in irregular ways.
Amen.
The North Avenue Irregulars. Sunday, of course.
Welcome back to 1952. It's summer, and in America, TV hopes to shed light on those political duels we call presidential campaigns. In Finland, the midnight sun shines on those allegedly unpolitical duels we call the Olympics. And Russia's red glare can be seen over the civilized war of sport and the Civil War of Korea. The Soviet Union and North Korea on one side, the United States and South Korea on the other. Only it's no game. And if there's light at the end of this tunnel, we can't see it yet, even in broad daylight.
Americans were dying in Korea that summer, containing communism, trying to bottle the genie. We sent surrogate warriors to the Summer Olympics in Helsinki, Finland. It was supposed to be a kind of athletic propaganda battle, the decadent bourgeoisie against the nasty Russian brutes. But it didn't work out that way. Bud Greenspan was a radio broadcaster in Helsinki for the games.
The Soviet was almost depicted as not human. They always needed shaved, they always looked tough, they always... Well, suddenly onto the scene comes handsome blonde men and beautiful girls. I was saying these couldn't be Russians, these could be Swedes, these are Norwegians, these are Finns, but they were Soviets.
He's no Russian. He's the vaulting vicar, clean-shaven, clean-living Reverend Bob Richards, a gold medalist in the pole vault and a self-appointed goodwill ambassador.
I'd hug Russians, and I did everything in my power to try to live the Baron de Coubertin Olympic ideology, peace through sports. Now, we couldn't talk. As I recall, I knew one Russian word, horosho, which means very good or wonderful. Well, every time the Russians would jump, I'd say, horosho. And every time I jumped, they'd say, good, beautiful. And wouldn't it be something if a simple little hug, or a handshake, or a horosho, or a beautiful, beautiful, wouldn't it be something if that's what it took to save mankind?
Gallantry upstaged ideology. Politics was forgotten in the friendly heat of competition. In the finals of the 3,000-meter steeplechase, a grueling course of hurdles and water jumps captured by an American spectator in 16mm home movies, a Russian and an American had a duel in the sun.
The steeplechase was a real international affair because the man that was supposed to win it was a guy by the name of Kuznetsov of the Soviet Union. And we had, as our representative, a gentleman by the name of Horace Ashenfelter of the United States. Now, this is interesting because Horace Ashenfelter was an FBI man. And so in the middle of the Cold War, all the American newspaper guys were talking about the United States had slipped in an FBI guy to watch Kuznetsov, who was a, KGB spy.
His name was Kazantsev, and he was not a spy, so far as we know anyway. But he was the world record holder. Ashenfelter was given no chance. But he took the lead after the third lap with the Russian at his elbow. And there they stayed until the final water hole, where Kazantsev stumbled and Ashenfelter pulled away. He won by nearly 30 yards and broke Kazantsev's world record by more than 3 seconds.
It was a miraculous victory, and the United States played it up pretty big that, our system creates the Olympic champions and so forth and so on.
How about unlikely champions? How about Lindy Remigino of Manhattan College by way of Hartford, Connecticut? Remigino had barely qualified for the Olympic team, but here he was in Helsinki in the 100-meter finals, up against the great Herb McKinley of Jamaica.
It's something you worked for. When you're on the starting line, you don't believe how 3 minutes can be an eternity. You're saying, doggone it, this is what I worked for. And I got a chance to win it.
Has anybody seen that tiger? Hold that tiger, hold that tiger.
I started to lean for the tape that was a long way away from where I was leaning. And when you do that, you shorten your stride at 100 meters. Herb was right by me at the finish line. And I shook his hand, figured he had beaten me, but as a photo finish. It took about 20 minutes for them to get the camera, photo down, examine it, and the administration of the finish said, Lindy, you had won.
It was one of the closest finishes in Olympic history. A 17-year-old middleweight named Floyd Patterson won a gold medal. All told, the United States won 76 medals, the Soviet Union 71, so there too.
I'd trained 20,000 hours for just that moment to stand there knowing that you've represented your country in the greatest athletic event there is, and you won.
And the greatest vacation spot there is, America. You can drive to it. What's more, the price is right. Gas is a big 27 cents per gallon.
Happy trails to you. It's great to say hello.
Sure, it's great to say hello. Talk is cheap. Tourist courts are not. And often they charge extra to anybody picky enough to think that children ought to sleep indoors too, even if everybody shares one room or bed. Kimmons Wilson is about to challenge the system. He's a builder who lives in Memphis, Tennessee. He can afford to travel, but not to stop.
I had 5 children. My $8 room became $18. I told my wife, this is unfair. Nobody will want to travel with their children. And I'm going home, and I'm going to build a chain across the country, and I'll never make a charge for children as long as they live in the same room with their parents. I also wanted to be sure that I had a clean room. I wanted to have a television. I wanted to have everything that I wanted in my room when I went.
The next place he goes is to Ed Bluestein, a draftsman.
And I said, I'm going to build a motel, and I want you to draw it for me like this. 4 or 5 days later, he came back with the drawing. Up at the top, he had scratched the name Holiday Inn. I said, that's a pretty good name. Where did you get it? He says, I saw Bing Crosby in the movie last night on television.
I think I've dreamed up the greatest idea I ever had. And you've had some pips. Oh, but this can't miss. I'm turning the farm into an inn. But what an inn? Yeah, Holiday Inn.
I said, that's a great name, we'll use it.
August 2nd, Kimmons Wilson's first Holiday Inn opens in the one town he already has a place to stay, Memphis.
If the traffic noise affects you like a squeaky violin, kick your cares down the stairs and come to Holiday Inn.
In the summer of '52, Kimmons Wilson is definitely giving us a sign.
At least 50 feet tall. I wanted to have a changeable letter marquee on it. What I wanted was, when you rode up there, we could give you a message. We could tell you, hello, Mr. Jones, we're happy you're here. And you can't believe how much people like seeing their own name in lights.
Happy trails to you until we meet again.
When Roy Rogers rode those happy trails the summer of '52, his fast food restaurants were still beyond the blue horizon. But he already was one smart hombre. He did his writing and his singing on TV, not in the movies. Come back to another Duel in the Sun, when Western movies get shot down by TV sitcoms.
Let's see him top this on television.
Taste a flame-broiled Whopper, Double Whopper, or Whopper Jr. The way you like it. Original. Just like you. Burger King, the best food for fast times.
Best part about running is stopping. But I do it because it makes me feel good. And it works. Same thing goes for my antiperspirant. I use Real because nothing works like it. It feels good. Imagine an antiperspirant that feels good going on. It's soft, smooth, and dry right away. Not like roll-ons. Real feels good and it works. Just like running.
Real feels as good as it works. Real antiperspirant.
By Menon.
There's something new on the road. It's built by Jeep. It's the kind of truck only Jeep could build. But it's also the kind of truck just about anybody can afford. The new short bed Jeep Comanche Sport Truck. It's worth a look.
One memorable night.
Thanks, Rob.
At the Silver Bullet.
Hey, you're Don Adams, right?
Yes. One Coors Light, please.
Would you believe 2 Coors Lights?
Great.
Ring, ring. Hello? It's for you, Don.
Terrific.
Thanks. Mind if I join you?
Mind if I pour?
Not at all. Missed it by that much.
There's no slowing down with the Silver Bullet tonight.
You just did.
See the pyramids along the Nile.
Our world will be right back.
On a tropic isle. But just remember, darling, all the while you belong to me.
Friday, Webster discovers the price of friendship.
You guys all gonna pay me back, won't you? Oh, sure, man.
And Wesley's got the secret to success.
We'll do anything for money.
Mr. Belvedere. Then, a world television premiere.
Tell him I'll take my usual 5% of the deal.
One American seduced by the mystery of the Far East.
I think you're the most corrupt individual in Southeast Asia.
David Soul, Harry's Hong Kong. Tomorrow.
I need copies made by tomorrow, and do you have typesetting?
You want what?
Copies?
Made by when?
Tomorrow?
And do we have what?
Typesetting?
Nine! Go someplace else.
At PIP, there's no problem. We have fast, friendly service with reasonable prices. And yes, we do have typesetting among our many other services. PIP Printing on Brundage, your full-service printing store.
Nissan of Bakersfield is doing its spring cleaning, sweeping out high prices and offering you savings on the entire inventory, like this brand new 87 Nissan Sentra. It can be yours with payments under $100 a month. Or how about this new Nissan pickup, also under $100 a month. Finally, payments you can live with. At Nissan of Bakersfield, there's over 400 cars and trucks to choose from. One of them can be yours for under $100 a month. Check it out now at Nissan of Bakersfield in the Bakersfield Auto Mall, south of White Lane, off Wyville.
Presidential hopeful Gary Hart calls it quits. Details on Night Beat.